interesting because when I tune into her, which is why I asked, because to me she felt like she'd be like the oldest or like the one or the first, but I wasn't exactly sure because sometimes like miscarriage has a different feeling, and I didn't feel like there was like a child in the living that would be above her. But she's really interesting to me in the way that she feels, because I would definitely consider her to be very much like an old soul. I think she comes in with like a bit of a wisdom that you may not expect of a kid of her age. And I do think that she has some, what do you want to call it, an intuition, a sensitivity. I don't know if you've ever heard the terminology crystal child. Mm-hmm. Okay. So like I personally sometimes get irritated by some of like the new age labels, but if I had to put a label on her, that's what I would categorize her as. And even just some of the physical facial characteristics are very much attributes that we see a lot with those kids. But the other thing too, like I don't think that she is necessarily going to grow out of that sensitivity. A lot of kids are sensitive when they're younger, period. And then as they get older into school, they start to grow out of it. I think she's always going to retain some of that sensitivity. And I don't know if this is something that's expressed itself yet or not, but I do think that she has some musical inclination in her, because they're putting signs and symbols of like music. I don't know if it's playing or if it's singing, but they're putting a lot of that expressive energy around her in a musical sense. But the really interesting thing too that I get with her is, and I know that you guys, or at least you do, have a Catholic background. So I don't know, like where you're at with certain things. I myself am a believer of reincarnation. But I actually do think that if you prescribe to that, I think that we often tend to stick to families, mm-hmm. and sort of, different points. It's not uncommon that we were our own ancestors and did back. I do think that she has a generational connection to your family, and I do think that it's probably going to be your mom's side of the family more so than anything else. But one sec. But again, that's like they're talking about like her not outgrowing that, and in a lot of ways, the way that they put it, she's very much here to be a teacher. And in a lot of ways, despite the hardships that you may have experienced, she's here to be like a source of comfort to you. Like her presence seems very soothing and very healing. Not necessarily in the way of a distraction, but in a sense, it's kind of like she's here to be like an anchor point. Because the thing too is like when I look at the energetic dynamics between the two of you, yes, you've had like life challenges, but yet within the context of the relationship itself, there are things that could be clearer, more refined, strengthened, worked on. And when I feel the way that the two of you feel together, I like the way that feels, and there is a lot of potential, not implying that anything is off or wrong or out of balance, but there's a lot of potential to really bring more of a sense of closeness and bring more of a sense of a healing between the dynamic of the two of you. And I think a lot of what Gracelyn does is she's going to be that connecting point that really keeps you two from emotionally straying too far apart from each other. Let's see here. And I don't know if this is anything that Gracelyn has ever mentioned, but I actually do feel like there's some sort of like a connection between your mother and her, because she shows herself as being around your daughter. And so I don't know if she talks about that grandmother that she's never met. Okay. And I think that your mom just wants to acknowledge that, one, it's almost like after having been on that side for so long, being able to see the bigger picture, one, it's like an apology of, I know I messed my life up, and because of that, you were absent, like a mother figure, and so there's an apology there, and it's like there's only so much that a person can do once they're out of the physical world, and in a weird way, it's almost like she's trying to compensate for what she couldn't be for you by like being that, almost like a guide or a guardian angel for her granddaughter. So please just know that. Do you pray with your daughter?
I used to.
Like a good night or like before bed or whatever?
Oh no, every night we do a story time where
Okay, there's something about, and I don't know if this is coming from your grandmother or whatever, but what they're giving me, sometimes I'll use things from my own life, and they're giving me a picture of like kneeling at the edge of my bed with my grandmother, my grandpa, or whatever, saying like my before bed prayers or whatever. I don't know what that's about, but there's some sort of a connection between that and prayer and your daughter. So, like I said, I don't know exactly what that's about. I'm just going to give it to you, and you can like think on that or reflect on that.
To pray with her, you know.
Right.
Like we never
To be honest with you,
knelt.
We used to.
We never knelt and prayed. I mean,
Right.
we just, you know,
We'd lay there and pray.
because I kind of changed my beliefs a while back. You know, and like he's still really religious.
Sure.
I'm not so much religious. But you know, like, you know, if he talks about God or we have religious stuff in our house, I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't bother me. And I want her to keep an open mind of if she wants to believe in God, she can, but I'm not going to force that onto her.
Yeah, and I think that she will. You know, she may see it in her own way, and I know that she's really young right now, but I think that she's always going to have a strong faith or a strong connection in a higher power. The other thing too, they want me to tell you or to make sure that I communicate to you that she's protected, that she's looked after. It's almost like symbolically they put like this bubble around her. Like she, to me, feels like she has a really strong sense of purpose for this lifetime, and I think that she, has a good life, a good future ahead of her.
If she wants to believe in God, she can, but I'm not going to force that onto her.
Yeah, and I think that she will. You know, she may see it in her own way, and I know that she's really young right now, but I think that she's always going to have a strong faith or a strong connection in a higher power. The other thing too, they want me to tell you or to make sure that I communicate to you that she's protected, and she's looked after. It's almost like symbolically they put like this bubble around her. Like she, to me, feels like she has a really strong sense of purpose for this lifetime, and I think that she, has a good life, a good future ahead of her, but she, to me, feels incredibly purpose driven. So it'll be interesting to see who she becomes as a person as she grows into herself the older that she gets.